All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping into our second semifinals of the day. We have up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, the player that I think has 17,000 Partoos bet on him. Give it up for the European Russian Terran player, Beastyqt. And his opponent spawned down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. We have the orange Protoss player. Give it up for TAiLS. Korean mastermind. Gotta show us that, you know what, that TVP win, or sorry, that PvT win rate, it's because he's playing in Korea. It's because he's playing against Koreans, and these foreigners don't stand a chance against them. That's what he's looking to prove right now. Because that 40% win rate is not looking super, what's the word for it? It's not looking optimistic for him. But we'll see. Maybe there are certain things that he struggles with, certain aspects of it. I know that there are some Terran players like Semper. I always think about Semper these days when I think about a Terran player that's so ridiculously good in some aspects, but also struggles in other aspects. So like in, for example, the matchup of TVP, Semper is such a great, he's amazing at pulling his opponents apart, dropping everywhere, putting on the harassment. But when it comes to dodging disruptor shots, he really does struggle, I think. It's a lot of like, he's one of the players that runs away. He doesn't really tend to split. He doesn't really tend to pick up his units and medevacs and run away. It's a lot of, Olivia's just like, what the hell are you talking about, really? But it's a lot of those just stim and run away sort of mechanics that he ends up going for. And that ends up, I think, making it harder for him to deal with disruptors. He's told me himself he struggles a bit with disruptor play. And if Beastyqt can identify things like that in TAiLS' play, maybe identify the reason why TAiLS doesn't necessarily have the highest win rate in the matchup, that might be really beneficial for him and allow him to move on to the grand finals and face off versus Hydra. But for now, we do have reactor barracks coming out, fast factory coming out, so we got a pretty fast tech up coming out from Beastyqt. Same time, we got TAiLS going for the double gas geyser. Nothing super special. I really do enjoy this matchup quite a bit. But there have been some interesting just developments, I would say, in the matchup lately that have been they've been interesting to watch, I should say. As we've been seeing, you know, more and more Terran players sort of like deviating from the types of compositions that they like to go for. Some of the Terran players have been going more for like those Widow Mine compositions. I've been seeing a lot more players like try to mix in the Liberators into the mid and late game, but then there's some players that just don't like to go for the Liberators. We can definitely see Beastyqt is one of the players that likes to get started on that Liberator account nice and early on, so that you can really start to build up. And this is another one of those things. It's like that question of when do you start building into that Liberator account? That's another big thing. And again, Beastyqt really likes to go for the earlier Liberators and is going to be going for that early Liberator harassment. You can see rallying that straight across the map. And because of that, there have been interesting metagame. Oh, actually, really nice Reaper scouting over here, scouting out the Templar archives, or sorry, the Twilight Council, down, and being chrono boosted and researching, so that you can probably anticipate that it's either Blink or it's going to be the Adept Resonating Glaives upgrade. One of the two. But that does mean that he knows, hey, guess what? I think that this Liberator harassment could be a little bit more effective. It's not like a Stargate out. It's not an Oracle that was going to be popping out. So even though he does have his Marines position in place to defend against a potential Oracle, he's still ready to deal with maybe like a missile turret for a Warp Prism or something like that. Or of course, a Dark Templar could also, of course, be an option. But man, I almost love that Liberator placement. Oh, it was so close to being so good. But he does manage to scoot it out of there just in time. Saves it just barely by the skin of his teeth. And gonna be able to at least force out another Photon Overcharge, or force some of the Stalkers to come over there and potentially take a loss or two on that. This Liberator. Oh, is he? Oh, I think he's trying to bait out the Photon Overcharge. That's really cute. At the same time, we have the Observer in the main base right now for Beastyqt. Gonna be spotting out the additional barracks coming down. Spotting out, more simply, I would say, the third expansion coming out. Sometimes it can be a little bit strange when your opponent expands in this matchup, when they just sit around on two bases. It's one of the matches that I feel like you tend to see both of the players expanding around the same-ish time. And of course, TAiLS already through that third expansion. But there are some players out there that just say, you know what, 2 bases, that's a pretty good point. I'm going to continue the aggression on just 2 bases. I've seen some players opt to go for things like that. It is a little bit less common, but just getting to confirm scout out on, oh, there's siege tanks coming out. You're not just going for the pure Marine Marauder or Bio Ball. You're not going for additional, I don't see any Widow Mines in the mix in your army. Like, you're going into potentially more Liberators or Medivacs. That's another big thing, is there's just so many of these small little pieces of information that you really want to scout out in this matchup these days on what your opponent's composition is going to be. Seeing the Medivacs instead of additional Liberators is another stylistic choice that you really want to be prepared to go for or deal with. Now, of course, Blink Stalkers are a really great mechanism for being able to not only deal with like Liberator harassment or Medivac harassment as they used to be, but also just getting aggressive against Liberators, blinking on underneath them when they try and siege up a little bit too far forward if they siege up in not the greatest position. So continuing to build up that stalker count is definitely going to be important for TAiLS, and I like the fact that he's just keeping it so pinned back. He can obviously easily warp in a couple more units over here with the sentries, can maybe go for some force seals and buy some time if he needs to. The stalkers in the back we're going to be defending against any sort of liberator or drop harassment, and the militia corps covers the main base, so it's kind of that nice split up. Now he does move all of his stalkers over to the main base, maybe not as concerned about the liberator harassment anymore or any of the drops, because look at this vision. I want you guys just to like look at the mini-map. You got observers all around the map. Look at how many observers he has, and he has even just this trail of even more observers. This is actually larger than, this has gone more ridiculous than Pig Baby. We had 9 observers out. There is absolutely no way that TAiLS gets caught off guard by Liberators, by surprise coming on in, that he runs out of observers because they all get picked up. He's always going to have a spare observer as long as he realizes where to pull it in from. He's even got an observer inside the main base still of Beastyqt. So the one thing he does have is vision, but of course that robotics ability is not being used for Warp Prism or for Immortals or anything else, no disruptors or anything else coming out. So that does mean that he's invested a lot of gas, and I mean, it's hard to say like, oh, you invested a lot of gas in observers. Observers are 75 gas, that's a decent bit, but it's not the most absurd amount. But in this game, when you have 9 observers out, that's actually a pretty decent amount of gas that could have gone into additional tech or any sort of other transitions out. So there might be a little bit of vulnerability, as you can see. He is sitting down a bit in supply. He's grabbing his 4th expansion a good bit earlier than Beastyqt, and really just relying on vision and positioning, I think, to make sure he can deal with Beastyqt, who is going to be relying on some of these Liberators and needs to well position his army himself. But Beastyqt getting a bit of vision of this army may say, you know what, that's actually not that big of an army. Is he going to be moving out with his siege tanks and his Liberators? Again, it's all about being in the correct position for him when he tries to engage into TAiLS' army. 2-2 upgrades though, going to be finishing up. Scan goes down, sees the Chronobus on the forges. Doesn't quite see the massive number of gate. This is an absurd number of warp gates, and they are, it's not because, well, okay, it is because he has 12 warp gates, which is a lot, but they're all in the main base, which is sort of surprising. This is one of those things where you kind of say like, hey, a normal Protoss player would just get dropped in the main base and they would just lose all of their warp gates, because, you know, that's where all the production is, and if you lose all those warp gates, if all your pylons get depowered, you're suddenly in a world of trouble. But I mean, I'm not actually worried about that with TAiLS, because look at this. The Medivac comes in over here. It doesn't really accomplish a whole lot, because guess what? TAiLS has so many observers and so much map vision that he's really not concerned. Pulls his army back even to try and deal with some of these Marines that make their way across the map. And amazingly, 15 workers got killed. I don't know if I just missed the worker harassment. If I did, I do apologize. But we got observer getting picked off. That's one of the 9 observers that got picked off. Some force shields going down. This is another really cool thing I love to see more Protoss players do, utilizing the force shields, but got to get out of those Liberator zones. Gonna force shield those Marines away as well, and taking quite a bit of damage. He did have 2-2 versus 1-1 upgrades over there, so did survive and take a slightly better engagement, but he really is going to be relying on just having a bigger army with 12 warp gates, because he does not have the tech that he really wants to try and deal with this kind of army. With siege tanks and Liberators and Marines and Marauders that have stim and combat shields, and even the Medivacs in the mix in pretty decent number, yes, the pure gateway army can deal with this, but you really do need a superior army force or amazingly good upgrades. And I mean, he's got at least one of those with 2-2. But 2-2 is no longer going to be an advantage you can rely on, as in about 10 seconds or 15 seconds, he's going to be losing that advantage. Archon's coming in the mix. He's finally starting to mix in a little bit more. But oh man, these Liberators siege up in a very nice position. Almost killing him. No, does kill off one of those Archons. Those Archons are expensive. You could not afford to sacrifice them. Stimming on forward, trying to get some pickoffs, doing a little bit of damage, forcing TAiLS to engage into him. This is going to be so important, but here we go. TAiLS is trying to move around from the backside. He's going to be able to pick off some of these siege tanks. This is a nice little maneuver. All of the Liberators are also not protecting that right-hand side, but the 4th expansion goes down. And Beastyqt establishes a 4th expansion of his own, getting up a 5th expansion. He is preparing to move into the later stages of the game, but he's got to be careful. He's got to move back, and he's got to keep this army alive. But the Blink Stalker is going to continue to pressure over here. The Adepts also charging on forward. He's taking an engagement. The Liberators are not sieged up just yet. They're starting to siege up. They're starting to get some good shots up, killing off a decent chunk of these Adepts, and he is going to be able to push TAiLS back. Oh, so after some very tense engagements, Beastyqt definitely feeling a little bit better about that after killing off that 4th expansion. That was the big advantage that I think TAiLS really had, as he's only just now starting to get up some of that later stage tech off of the Templar archives, getting out some of those the High Templar to make into Archons, but he doesn't actually have, I believe, Storm Research. No, he doesn't have Storm Research, so can't even just leave some of those High Templars around as not Archons and get Storms down, try and deal with the Liberators or the Bioforces, push his opponent back. He's really just got to rely on just massive numbers of units. He does have 3-3 though, so the upgrades are finally back in his favor, but only for about a minute longer. After that, oh, he's going to have to get some other form of tech up. He really has to. Beastyqt's Liberator count is also starting to get a little bit out of control right now. The Stalker count's there, but when you get this many Liberation zones that get set up, it's so easy to just only unsiege a couple of the Liberators and slowly inch your way forward. Adepts gonna be coming in from the backside. It's a full surround right now, and the Liberators are not all firing. This is actually a pretty decent engagement, I would say, right now for TAiLS, but is it going to be enough? I just don't know. I think that just barely Beastyqt, with some more of these Liberators re-sieging up in a good position, are going to be able to take out the remainder of this army. These Stalkers may even have to blink out. They may have to try and retreat as the Liberators, oh, they're under fire from some more of the Stalkers. The reinforcements coming in much faster over here for TAiLS. Beastyqt is reinforcements sitting on the other side of the map. We got a couple of these Liberators. We don't actually have many other Bioforces coming out. I don't know where that next wave of reinforcements was. I don't know if Beastyqt wasn't actually starting up that next wave. That could have actually cost him a big opportunity to continue that aggression. And now, okay, well, TAiLS is being very aggressive with a very small group of units. I would say I don't know if this is enough, but apparently it is. These Liberators can't really engage against the Stalkers on their own. They need something to tank on the ground. Is this really going to be able to do this much damage? Couple Marauders and Marines starting to come on in and pushing TAiLS back a little bit further, but TAiLS is continuing to just put pressure on, trying to take out a reactor, or trying to take out a refinery, I should say, taking out any SCVs that he can, just doing some nice Blink Stalker macro and not losing any of these Stalkers. At the same time, we got a Liberator over here doing a little bit of harassment at that 4th expansion. Still no gas guys are taking out this 4th, by the way. That's I would say a big blunder, but I mean, of course, he did just lose this expansion, so I think it's more they just hasn't had the time to. And of course, he does have a nice little gas bank building up. I mean, nothing compared to the gas bank Beastyqt is building up as he's starting to get more and more of this big mech army. But all Stalkers trying to exploit that immobility of the Liberators, going after one of the command centers, does get one of them. Another orbital command trying to be morphed in. He's going to be able to save that one. And yet another command center actually around as well. So Beastyqt is going absolutely ham with trying to get out some of those these availability of scans as well as mules for the latest stages of the game. He knows again how important that army positioning is, but he needs to throw down those scans on this Stalker army to keep an eye on them so he can make use of it. And here we go, he's making use of it right there, killing off a couple of these Stalkers, gonna be able to pick off even one additional one. He stemmed up his entire army for it though, so he's gotta make something happen over here. GG gets called. Beastyqt not feeling it anymore, tapping on out. Oh, sorry. TAiLS tapping on out, not feeling it. Beastyqt. Oh, bit of a mistake on there. Final announcements and everything. But oh my god, Tempo's alive! Tempo's here, he's messaged me on Skype. Oh boy. Tempo. My man. Oh, Poor Tempo. All right, guys, we're gonna have to a short little break. I'm gonna maybe see if we can get Tempo in here if he's willing to do this, or maybe just the finals, but we'll be back in a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're finally back. Unfortunately, Tempo is still getting ready, but after he gets ready, he will be joining us for the grand finals. But for now, we're hopping into the ace match. Match point for Beastyqt, game number 2, as we spawn down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map on top of the pink Terran player. Give it up for the European Beastyqt, sitting up 1-0. And his opponent spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map as the orange Protoss player. Give it up for the Korean himself, looking for the comeback. It is TAiLS. All right. Well, we already have the game getting pretty underway, and we already have Beastyqt sitting on that one base play right now, getting up that supply depot wall, and has the Marine over here. And of course, I want to note, TAiLS has not gone for the scout. He has no idea that this is a one base play out of Beastyqt on Prion Terraces. Such a weird map to see games on, but apparently when the rest of the map pool is so weird, it makes sense. Okay, sorry, just responding to a quick Skype message. But we do have Twilight Council coming on down, as well as the robotics facility. So TAiLS is maybe looking to play this a little bit more defensively, similar to how he did in the last game. Get out the Blink Stalker, get out some observers, and we'll see if he goes to the massive observer count. If he even tries to go to that massive observer count that he did in the last game, that is probably gonna not go so well for him. Just because he's going to be facing against a lot of heavy aggression. We already have Widowmine drop coming out, Liberator getting started, Hellions going to be coming out, and there's still no sign of a command center. Beastyqt is starting to save up for the minerals for it, though. He's going to start to throw it down. It's going to be much, much later, though. He has to get some damage done. But the fact that TAiLS is going to be so unprepared for this, it may actually end up working out. Blink is being chrono boosted out. A second observer is already going to be on the way. The observer is going to be so important for him. And this observer is going to pass over the Widowmine, the drop. He sees the drop, but does he react in time? I'm not sure if he actually witnessed the fact that the drop was coming in, as now he's going to be moving on in. Marines and the Widowmine going to be burrowing in a nice spot, getting really well situated over here. The Widowmine killing off not a whole lot of workers over there, killing off maybe one worker. The Marines also get cleaned up pretty quickly. At the same time, though, the Hellions going to be making their way over to the natural expansion. The drop gets pushed back. The Hellions coming on in, killing off a couple of these workers. The workers are lining on up. Oh my god, these Hellions. Just 2 Hellions killing off 3 workers a pop. And going to be able to still continue to kill off more. And at the same time, the Marines, they come back into the main base. They focus fire down more and more workers. And look at this. This base was much better saturated just moments ago. Even a Stalker might end up falling over here. At 16, okay, the damage has been done. This is the damage that I needed to get done. Killing off yet another Stalker. He's going to end up losing all these Marines, but 17 workers killed. He takes his gold expansion. He's only sitting 2 workers ahead now, which is a bit unheard of for a Terran player at this stage in the game. Normally, the Protoss player should be sitting up a couple of workers because you got those mules, you got all kinds of other stuff. And the worst part is there is now the Liberator that's coming on in, gonna continue this harassment. This is a great angle. I think that the Stalkers are gonna struggle quite a bit. There might be enough room for one Stalker to get in range, but no, we're gonna see Blink finish up. He's gonna go for it, but he's gonna end up losing one of the Stalkers, taking some shield damage on the other Stalker in the meanwhile. And Beastyqt is looking like he is going to set himself up for a great game number 2. He's looking to be in a potential situation where he could maybe, just maybe, be able to 2-0 TAiLS. Now, of course, it is not over just yet. It is far from over. TAiLS still has a working economy. He still has some good tech with Blink Stalkers out. He has a lot of observers. He's going to be able to keep a really good eye out on his opponent. And Beastyqt over-aggresses a little bit with Liberators or anything else. These observers are going to allow him to get the jump on any of that harassment and immediately take it out, really just allowing himself to potentially bring himself back in the game. So the options are there. The potential for TAiLS to come back is there. He has the tools, but is he going to be able to make use of them? Oh, gonna end up losing potentially Stalkers over here in the center of the map. Loses one of them. The other one, the front one, takes some shield damage as now he realizes what's going on. now trying to bring an observer over there. What good is having 3 observers out on the map if you don't have them over there in place to deal with the Widow Mines, unfortunately. But here we go. Maybe looking for an opportunity to jump into the main base. Siege tanks and a bunker already available in the Beastyqt's main base, though. Ready for the defense. Now he started to salvage this army, though. Or that bunker. If only you could salvage the army. Sound is muted. Is this sound muted? Hold on. The sound's not muted, is it? It's definitely not muted. Don't mess with me. Read this again. Again. I'm very susceptible to that kind of troll. But, alright, we got additional gateways being plopped on down. This is once again that style that TAiLS went for in game number 1, where he just goes to a massive gateway count, really delays any other form of tech, but he is finally getting up that Temple Archive. So maybe you're going to think about getting out some of those Archons a little bit earlier than the last time. Marines now popping on out across the map. Some siege tanks also joining in the fray. And this is going to be a very scary push-in if and only if TAiLS is not well positioned for it. Oh, we got the Liberator coming on in. Photon Overcharge does kill it off, but a couple more workers that do end up falling. We're seeing that TAiLS is still in a worker lead, though, but is he going to be prepared for a worker? Is he going to still have a worker lead after this harassment comes in? As the siege tanks siege down up on the low ground and also start to elevator a little bit up to the high ground. Stalkers trying to pick off any sort of reinforcements that are coming around, and this is getting to be a bit of a dangerous situation over here. Immortal also going to be under fire. Revive facility could be the next thing under attack, and I think this is going to be the moment the Archons come in from the bottom side, as well as those Stalkers. Medivacs may need to pick up some of these siege tanks or some of the Marines, move on in over to the main base, but the Photon Overcharge cleans up those units, does end up defending over on the low ground, and now there's only a single Medivac worth of units left over. This is the kind of defense that I was talking about TAiLS really needed to do. He defends, he maintains a worker lead, he has a 3rd expansion up over at the gold, much earlier on than Beastyqt, and he is starting to make this look like, hey, you know what? I'm actually looking better right now. I'm looking better than my opponent. Really back and forth with how this has been going, but it's not over just yet. Beastyqt still does have a pretty scary looking army, and it has a oh my god, that 3rd command center is only just now getting started. This is an unbelievably late one. Is he even aware? Okay, he has seen the 3rd command center, but it's so late to see that 3rd nexus. It's so late. He's gonna come back in with a drop. He's gonna be able to pick off one of the upgrades. That's a nice pick off, especially considering he's still sitting up in that upgrade count, or that upgrade lead, with +1 armor already finished up. And if you actually get started on +1 weapons finished up, if you get started on +1 armor, or even get started on +2 weapons, either one is gonna be really nice for him. And just, you know, seizing control of the zone like a watchtower, keeping an eye out. He doesn't have observers, but he has observers, if you know what I mean. Marines that are tasked with the job of observing the map. It's going to be not quite as effective once the adepts start to put some pressure across the map, but this is another kind of interesting thing, is the fact that Beastyqt is really intent on establishing this regular mineral base as opposed to the gold mineral base that TAiLS has. So TAiLS is going to be skyrocketing ahead even further, with the fact that he took a 3rd not only earlier, but took it at the gold, and he's going to be taking his 4th at the regular base. So his economy is just sitting infinitely better right now than TAiLS, or sorry, than Beastyqt. Beastyqt is also just sitting on 41 workers, really staying on a very low SCV count. And it kind of makes sense. He's not really mining from his main base. That's an okay-ish count, especially considering he's not really mining from his natural expansion that much anymore anyways. Only about 400-ish minerals left on some of these mineral patches. 39 on that one. But at the same time, I'm getting a bit concerned. TAiLS is just going to start to out-macro Beastyqt at this rate. And look at this army. This is not some sort of paltry force that, you know, is only pure adept stalker and just relying on having good positioning and everything. It's not like the previous ones. People are still saying game sound is muted, and I can't tell. I guess people are saying that it's very quiet. It wasn't a troll. When it temporarily muted the sound. Okay. I will double check and I will look into that, but I do not want to mess with the sound settings and like okay. Now it should be muted. Now it should not be muted. Like, I'm looking at my volume mixer. I'm gonna look into this after the game. All right, I'll look into this after the game. I do apologize for this, guys, if it is in fact muted. But regardless, we do have Beastyqt finally establishing a 4th expansion. He's establishing not the gold expansion, though. He is going for this more forward expansion that is very susceptible to harassment on the low ground. Like some stalkers positioned right along over here, even an immortal or two, can really cause some huge havoc for that expansion and all of its mining. And even it's just a very difficult expansion to defend. But at the same time, there's just a lot more sustainability in the economy, I would say, for Beastyqt. If he can survive, but that's the problem. If he can survive, how do you survive against this army when you're sitting down 50 army supply? I mean, you really better have some of the best Liberator and siege tank shots of your life. But here we go. We might be seeing it coming on in. Adepts making their way in with the shades, or at least getting some scouting information off. Gonna pull some of this army back potentially. Is he gonna let it fish? He does! And now he comes on in with these Archons and the Stalkers from the front. It's a big concave. The Sea Shanks getting some good damage done, but there is just not anywhere close to enough over here for Beastyqt. The Adepts are going to be surviving along the bottom side. They take out so many of those workers, and even if those Liberators manage to take out the majority of the very, very expensive units over there for TAiLS, I'm actually a bit surprised at how well they did. Oh my god, actually, wait. Is TAiLS actually going to not be able to break in through here? Yes, he took out a substantial portion of the economy. He's going to be able to continue the aggression with the Adepts, taking out some of these Siege Tanks, but the Liberators seriously got some very cost-effective trades over there. I mean, if this game were more even to start with, if TAiLS wasn't already so far ahead in that army supply and everything, I would suddenly say, you know what? TAiLS looking great. Or sorry, yeah, Beastyqt is looking really good after that engagement. But right now, it's just that problem where he's just lost so many workers. He just doesn't have the economy to replenish this. Even if he's sitting on a higher army supply right now, he's gradually starting to lose it. He's gradually starting to lose more and more of that army supply. And those Liberators are also going down as well. Oh boy, now 3rd expansion's starting to fall. The Liberators, they're not sieged up. They're gonna actually get taken out by these Stalkers one by one. Now SCV's been pulled off the line. This might be it. This might be the final stand for Beastyqt as he's dropping down to below the number of workers that you start the game with, or getting very close to it. Stalker's gonna be able to easily just blink on out to the low ground, I think, if they decide to blink out to the low ground. Yeah, there we go. And there's a 4th expansion that TAiLS has been mining from very, very comfortably this entire time. Liber gonna try and get a little bit of damage done. Not quite gonna happen. There's been a lot of damage done over here. So it looks like some counter damage, some counter harassment was done. But was it really enough? 39 to 14 workers. I guess mules can be pretty gosh darn good since he's sitting on, well, it's 2 bases of mules. There's only 2 orbital commands. Okay, well, Beastyqt's got his work cut out for him. Here it goes. Liberator siege up in a nice position, gonna be able to take out those Archons very, very quickly, or at least doing some good damage to them. The Stalkers on the bottom side of this engagement also falling very, very rapidly. Archons starting to fall. There's not a lot of units left over for TAiLS. If this actual expansion goes down, then this could cause a lot of problems. Beastyqt is starting to make some progress. Is he seriously gonna do this? He was looking so far dead. He was losing all of his army supply. He was losing all of his workers, and now suddenly he's killing off TAiLS' only real mining effective base. Photon overcharge goes down, but guess what? That pylon gets taken out, and there's no pylons left over. Full energy and Mothership Core. Beastyqt doesn't give a damn. He's taking out all the workers. At the same time, he's been continuing to produce more SCVs. He's actually starting to make progress over here. The Liberator count's starting to build up higher and higher as well. The Nexus is going to go down. It looks like the Adepts may even end up falling. No, they are going to be able to shade out of there just barely in the nick of time. And we might be seeing the final last defense. I want to say it's the last defense, but I've said the word last far too many times in this game. Now this is now the actual only mining base, and when you can only mine with 10 workers on mineral patches, you know you're in a bit of trouble, especially since some of those mineral patches only have 18 minerals left on them. TAiLS is segmented off from that expansion. He's got to do something. He's got to make his way down the ramp. He does find an opportunity to make his way down, but the Liberator is going to siege up and can prevent this army from moving in to defend the actual expansion itself. And now, Beastyqt can just use the Marine Marauders to dance back and forth, and if these army units ever try and move too far in, they're going to start taking some significant losses. The army tries to walk around. Stalker trying to get warp in. It does get taken out. Some of these medevacs are very, very low on energy, but also very low on health. If you can take those out, he maybe takes out some of the survivability of this army. The stalkers are getting taken out, though. 30 army supply to 61. Beastyqt is doubling the army supply, and that is saying something. GG gets called. Beastyqt takes the 2-0 victory in an astounding fashion. What a game number 2. That engagement was something else. That one engagement where Beastyqt was looking dead, he was looking down and out. His third expansion was minutes behind. I think like by the time the third expansion was established, the fourth expansion for TAiLS was mining. He had a maxed out army, 200 supply versus 150, but those liberators just massacred the immortals, the archons, and the stalkers. And the adepts, they did some good worker damage, but I guess they weren't participating in the fight enough, and that really just did allow Beastyqt to bring himself back in that game. But ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna hop to a short little break. I'm gonna try and get tempo on in as we hop into Beastyqt versus Hydra, our grand finals of best of 5 for the Chairs4Gaming NA Cup number 5. We'll see you guys in a little bit.